Hi, my name is Alex with Revolution Yacht Experience. In today's video, we're going to discuss how to plug in your shore power on your Axopar. Behind me, we have a 2022 37XC Axopar, and this will be a demo boat for today. Okay, so before we head to the shore power pedestal, we do want to check one thing first. Up here in the bow locker is actually where it is plugged in initially into the boat. This here is where your 30 amp shore power cord plugs in. You want to make sure this is plugged in, turned and secured. I'm going to go through it just really quickly just to show exactly how that process works. Most people leave these plugged in and just coil up their shore power cord in the locker because it's just the easiest. There isn't really a lot of need to unplug these, but notice that this end does have the female ports on the shore power cord itself. All we need to do is lift this up, line up the pins, insert, twist lock, and then there's a twist, and then there's a locking collar as well. So you want to hold that twisting force on the cord and close up that locking collar. Now this is fully secured and ready to go. Next we will head to the shore power pedestal and we'll plug in. Okay, now that we've ensured that the shore power cord is plugged into the boat itself, we've run the cord down the dock and we have the correct amount of length to plug into the shore power pedestal here. So as you can see, this is opposite to the other end that we had. These are male prongs that are coming out of a 30 amp shore power cord. We do know it is a 30 amp shore power cord just because of the style and the layout of the prongs. A 50 amp cord, which Axopars do not use, will have 4 prongs. Or 4 wires, should I say, whereas a 30 amp just has these 3. Okay, so once we have these exposed, we open this up. Your shore power pedestal may vary, you know, from marina to marina, but the process is really the same to plugging it in on the other end. We find our plug, insert, twist lock. Now that this is in, we want to go ahead and turn the breakers on. I didn't mention before, and I probably should have, that these breakers, you do definitely want these in the off position before you insert your plug. This is because if there's any load on the cord or on the boat, it's going to be asking for some power. And if you plug this in and your breakers are on, you may experience some arcing at the mechanical connection of those two metal plates where the electrical connection takes place. So having those breakers off before you begin is definitely a must. But now that it is securely connected, we have a good connection. We want to go ahead and turn both of those breakers on for this particular plug. So now that it's plugged in, we're going to go back on the boat and we're just going to make sure that we have plugged it in and that we do have power. Putting it in and turning it on is great, but you really want to go on your boat and make sure that everything you assume to have power now, it does indeed have power. Your batteries are charging and any other services on board do have the 110 volts that you're looking for. Okay, now that we're on board, it's time to do our checks and just make sure that that power that we're looking for is indeed present. So I want to actually power my screens up. That's assuming, of course, it wasn't already powered up when you're plugging your boat in. 9 times out of 10, your boat's already going to be powered because you've just pulled back into the marina from a trip. But in this case, I'm going to just power it up so you can see the power up procedure. Down here are our normal battery switches. We've gone through these in other videos, so we want to turn the service batteries and the engine batteries on, and that'll fire up our screens. And once these are booted up, I'll go through the menu system and show you where those voltages are that we're looking for. Okay, now the screens have booted up, I'm going to show you exactly where to find those voltages that we're looking for to ensure that charging is occurring. What we're actually looking for is voltages that indicate that charging is happening. Typically, charging occurs between 13.5 volts to 14.5 volts. If we see that range of voltage on the banks, we know that charging is taking place, and that indicates that the shore power is plugged in and is powering our battery charger, which runs off shore power. So let's take a look at that right now. We hit our home button and then there's an Axopar tile here. I find this a really handy way to see lots of information all at once. Okay, and if it's on a different area, let's say it boots up on the checklist, we just come over to boat status and then this is the page we want to see. And I can see that the battery charger has chosen to start charging the service battery. And before we plugged in, we were at 13.2 volts. And now this has jumped up to over 14 volts, which indicates a charging voltage. So our battery charger, it's doing its job. I can leave this boat with confidence, knowing that the battery charger and the house bank is going to be fine for when I return. Axopar battery chargers do take turns in charging each bank at a time. So this one here is what's being charged right now, and the engine start batteries will receive charging voltage in turn after the charger has successfully completed a charging cycle on this bank. It'll move to the other bank. So don't be alarmed if you don't see all of the banks jump right up to 14.3. As long as one of them does, the charger will get around to charging the other banks in time. Okay, so there is another way to ensure that shore power is present on your boat. If we go inside and walk around, we can actually find some receptacles, and if we see that they are working, then we're sure that shore power is also connected. Okay, so there's a receptacle here in the forward cabin. I'm going to use this to check that shore power is connected. So the first thing you can do is look directly at it, and because this is a GFCI or ground fault interrupter, there is a little light on here indicating that power is present. So that little light will never ever come on if you don't have shore power plugged in and connected properly. Another way to do it, and this may be something you're doing anyway, is to plug something into it just to double check. I have a space here right here, so in the winter months you definitely want to have something like this on board, producing heat and airflow in the boat. So right here, I'm just going to go ahead and plug this in, and we'll see that the device does power up. Okay, so we've plugged in at the dock pedestal, and now I want to come to the bow locker because there is actually a breaker panel in here and a little voltmeter that's going to tell us if we have 120 volts from the shore power or not. It's just down here, and I'm going to take a look at that now just to ensure everything is correct. So there's a little panel to flip up, and we see that we have a main RCD that stands for residual current device, and then we have a another main breaker called for 30 amps. We have our receptacles breaker, which is on, and our charging breaker for 15 amps, which is also on. And then I see off to the right here there is 120 volts coming in. There's a little LED readout, and I can see that it's there. Just to the right of that, there's a water heater breaker, and this one is actually off right now. I don't intend on heating water because I'm going to leave the boat here. So I'm going to leave that one off, and everything else looks good. Okay, thanks for watching this short instructional video on how to plug in shore power on your Axopar. If you have any other questions on how to operate any other of your systems on your Axopar, please don't hesitate to reach out to Freedom Marine International Yacht Sales.